Hello, today I want to talk about this video made by the African Diaspora News Channel, known previously as The Advice Show, on YouTube. And this video came out in 2017, and there's just so many things wrong with it. It's called Fertility Wars, and it's by this guy named Mohammad. And this guy might as well be the Black Alex Jones, because some of the stuff that he says in this video is so batshit insane and incorrect that I couldn't hold that. I had to do a video on this. I was practicing commentary that I was going to script, but I said fuck that. I'm just gonna do a video on this live. So here we go.
Peace, family. Let's get right to work. Today we want to talk about fertility wars, and I want to start off with painting a picture and creating a scenario for you to kind of give a clear vision of what it is that we're trying to say today. Imagine if you were on an elevator and there were 11 people on the elevator plus yourself, and it appeared as if though those 11 people are coming for you, trying to attack you, trying to take you out. Question: what would you do to survive that elevator ride? You would do any and everything within your power to survive. Kicking, biting, scratching. If you had to knee somebody in the groin, you would do that. But the point that I'm making is, if you were stuck in an elevator and the ratio was 11-1, you do everything within your power to survive that elevator ride. Now, let's talk about fertility rates and go over some numbers here. I brought my data with me. I brought my receipts. So I would like for you to please be patient with me as I read through this, but pay very close attention to the numbers that I'm about to read off, because they're going to be very critical to the point that we wish to make today. It says, according to research, in order for a culture to remain or maintain itself for a 25-year period, the fertility rate must be at least 2.11 children per family. Let's start right there. Let me say it again. In order for people to maintain its culture for a 25-year period, every family has to produce at a rate of at least 2.1 children. With anything less, the culture will decline. Historically, no culture has ever reversed a 1.9 fertility rate, and a rate of 1.3 is virtually impossible to reverse, because it would take 80 to 100 years to reverse a 1.3 rate of fertility. Now, as of 2010, the fertility rate in France is 1.8. England, 1.6. Greece, 1.3. Germany, 1.3. Italy, 1.2. Spain, 1.1. Across the entire European Union of 31 countries, the fertility rate is a mere 1.4. Now remember, according to demographers and scientists, in order to maintain a culture for 25 years, you need a 2.1 fertility rate, and across the length and breadth of Europe, as of 2010, I believe it's worse now, the fertility rate is 1.4, just a point above the rate of that, which is a culture that is impossible to reverse. Now, let's bring it home here to America. All right. Right now, the American fertility rate is 1.84. That's just America in general. And you have to realize that some of the statistics that I gave for these European countries include the black and Latino populations in those countries as well as the Muslim population. Okay? So when you bring it to America, 1.84 is the fertility rate. But Latinos, also known as Hispanics here in America, are producing at a 2.4 fertility rate. And black women are producing at a 2.1 fertility rate, according to the statistics that I have before me. Now, let's talk about the fertility rates in the black community. We're producing at a 2.1 according to these statistics, but we're doing so even in the face of a constant barrage of daily attacks on our reproductive lifestyle. We're doing it in the face of the poisoning of the water. We're doing it in the face of these food deserts in our community that don't even keep us healthy enough to reproduce as at the rate that we should. We're doing it in the face of the selling of malt liquor in our communities that diminish the sperm count of black males. We're doing it in the face of a culture that has been forced upon us called birth control. We're doing it in the face of all of the abortions that are coming out of the black community. Margaret Sanger is paraded before the world as a humanitarian, but really Margaret Sanger was the catalyst for the murder of millions of black children through this thing called abortion and Planned Parenthood. So the point that I'm making is that even in the face of this war against black life, we are still reproducing at a rate where our culture will continue to stay alive beyond 25 years. Same with our Latino brothers and sisters. What will happen if the black and brown unite politically? What will happen if the black and brown unite economically? What will happen if black and brown people in America decide to join forces and stand on common ground? You have what would be called the browning of America. That's what demographers call it, because they say by the time you get to the year 2050, whites will no longer be the majority in this country. And the fertility rates bear witness that they are a dying people. How does this play into the political atmosphere in this country right now? Why do you think Donald Trump really wants to build a wall between America and Mexico? Do you think it really has something to do with Mexican brothers and sisters, quote unquote, taking our jobs? Hell no.
And that's the first part. We're going to stop the video. So he's wrong. It is about Mexicans and other low-wage work, people who are willing to work for less, coming into America and taking jobs and overflowing the work pool with people that are willing to work for less, which cheapens the value of labor. It's not rocket science to figure this shit out. And but that's only part of it. He's not wrong when he says that the reason why they're doing that as well is to maintain a white majority. But the reason that this Mr. Mohammad guy is giving is not correct. And we'll get to that later on in the video.
It has everything to do with the fact that they see the biblical verse that says, I will cut off the fruit of your womb. It's playing out right in front of their faces. White people.
Okay, this is a word of advice for you. Don't put Bible verses in with your philosophy. Just don't do it. You really alienate a lot of people when you do that. And it's also not factually correct either. And it's really stupid. The reason why doesn't have to do with some overseeing power, reducing the white birth rate because of some past actions or some shit like that. It has everything to do with cultural attitudes, economics, job opportunities, all kinds of things that go against that. And white people have been conditioned for like the last couple of decades to basically hate themselves. And it's become ingrained into the culture of America, Canada, United Kingdom. I mean, virtually everywhere in Europe except for Eastern Europe. And, you know, and this is why this is a big contributing factor. It has to do with the cultural change. And also, because white people had developed the more advanced societies, it actually kind of ended up being a bite in the ass, because when women started to enter the workforce, more and more women weren't staying at home with children or having children. And this affected white people more than any other group of people, because the cultural attitudes in minority groups were still old school, quote unquote. But white people were still continuously progressing. But in that, it was forgotten that, you know, having children was kind of paramount in order to maintain anything. It's not about maintaining white supremacy like this guy is trying to say, but which is he leading up to, basically. It's everything with preserving the culture and identity of a nation or a country, you know. This is ridiculous, you know. I don't get this self-defeating attitude of the West. It's like you spend like hundreds of years building a house. Each generation continues to work on that house, and it becomes a beautiful creation. It's not perfect inside, but that's what the generations after that are there for, to fix it and maintain it. But if you just forget about the house and leave it there, it's going to get, you know, unkempt, and, you know, it's going to get dirty, and it's going to be affected by the weather and all kinds of things, and it's going to get run down. And even further, instead of trying to fix the house, you just fucking take a wrecking ball to it and just destroy it, you know. And that's kind of where we're at right now in Western civilization as a whole. And, you know, only white people can maintain that. There are not enough people within minority groups that care about this sort of thing to where that wouldn't be an issue. But that's obviously not the case. You know, there might be people within minority groups who do care, but there just simply aren't enough to where white people could just be replaced. And even then, that's not really a good idea. At that point, there would be no reason to do that. I like to call white people, I like to say that white people are going through a soft genocide. It's not with weapons, it's not with grenades, it's not with, you know, anything, but just with propaganda and brainwashing. And that's not 100% the reason why, but it plays a big role. You know, obviously other factors play in as well, but that's one of the big reasons.
Or like a hamster on the wheel. Have you ever seen a hamster on the wheel? Hamster steady running, and the wheel is steady turning, but the hamster is going nowhere. That's what the fertility rate is like in the white community and in Europe. So much so.
Okay, so basically what he's saying is that white people are trying to have kids and nothing's happening. That's not the case at all. A lot of white people simply aren't even bothering with having kids, and it's a big problem. It's not that, you know, white people are just not able to have kids because of a fertility issue. That's not really the reason why. I have a friend, as white as they can be, blonde and everything, who has 9 siblings. So that's not really accurate. But has everything to do with what I just said previously. What he's making it out to be is some kind of fertility issue just out of nowhere, but that makes no sense.
That you can hardly go to Europe and find a daycare center. They really don't have daycare centers in Europe because they're not even reproducing fast enough for it to be a viable market. Brothers and sisters, these are very, very serious numbers. And going back to that elevator, you know, if you look at it from this perspective, you see white people's hatred for black people less emotionally. And you look at that elevator and you look at what, you think about what you would do to get out of that elevator, being outnumbered 11-1. In America, white people are still the majority. But worldwide, we outnumber them 11-1. And just like that individual on that elevator, they're doing everything within their power to survive the decline.
No. Not every white person is doing everything in their power to stop it. Like I said, white people are a very conditioned people. And over the past couple of decades, especially in recent decades, it's just gotten worse and worse. And we're starting to see that reverse itself ever so slightly. But we'll see what that gets to. But the big problem here, man, God almighty, I get a headache just even talking about this, because it's like I've responded to a number of these videos already, and I'm just getting tired of doing it, but there's just too much stupidity in them to just skip over it. So had that actually been the case, wait, hold on, I got off track. My mind got off track. This is not scripted at all. I'm just doing this off the cuff here because it was so dumb. But the big issue has to do with cultural attitudes. You know, not really that white people are doing everything in their power to stop anything. Especially not every single white person. I mean, I see this on a daily basis. Nobody is really doing anything in their power. I think we would see a lot more mayhem if that were to be the case. But that's obviously not the case.
Their population. So this is the catalyst. This is one of the reasons for this spike in vehement hatred for black and brown people.
No. The reason why you see a spike has nothing to do with white people as a whole. But people with already pre-existing right-wing beliefs had them reinforced when they found out about this stuff. Has nothing to do with every single white person. And on top of that, as well as that, on top of that, a lot of white people know about this, and some want to speak out about it, but they can't, because they'll immediately be labeled as right-wing extremists, or white supremacist terrorists, or any other number of stupid shit that they want to make up that day. And but it has nothing to do with that. Unless somebody actually believes in that ideology, just because you want to maintain the racial makeup of the country doesn't mean that you're a white supremacist. Doesn't mean you're going to commit genocide against an entire groups of people. That's not even feasible or necessary. What I advocate for is sort of a racial respect, a mutual respect that should be instilled in future generations of the country and other Western countries, so that it's not okay to outbreed, white people in those countries, since that's where white people belong. Nobody else says this kind of shit about any other country in the world. It only affects Western countries, and particular countries built by white people. No other country has to deal with this shit. I don't understand why white people have to die out for no reason. I find this disgusting on so many levels. Because this is the same guy who wants to talk about racism and this and that and not being hateful. And I'm like, well, you're just certainly not following your own footsteps then. He's not advocating for a genocide of white people directly. But it's clear that he has his agenda. You know, he wants this to happen. But I don't think it will. Eventually, when you keep poking the bear for so long, the bear's going to claw the shit out of you. And I think that's a perfect analogy for what's going on here. Eventually, right now it's still considered a political issue. But as time goes on, this will become more than a political issue. And it basically already has been for a while. This isn't an issue that politics can solve at all. Nobody's going to save anybody. It's going to take a countrywide, civilization-wide reset. Well, not really a reset, but sort of... it's going to take the power of many people and cooperation to fix this. And that's why I brought up the mutual respect thing. Because it's not that other races of people can't coexist in white countries. You know, that's something that a legitimate right-wing extremist would say. But it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that you can't just replace the people of a nation and expect it to remain the same. And this guy knows this information, otherwise he wouldn't be advocating for it. And that's what I find so disgusting about it. I'm like, well, you know that, but you're still following through with it. And have the intentions of not stopping to acquire some warped view of justice, saying that it's karma for white people. You know, it's not like every single white person on the planet did the exact same thing at the exact same time. That's why I don't think it's fair to say that white people have no right to exist because of some shit that happened hundreds of years ago to get this warped perception of justice. I'm getting so goddamn tired of these revenge plots. We need to get rid of the hierarchy. We need to get rid of the patriarchy and all this other stupid shit. Some things exist for a reason. And getting rid of those things will have detrimental effects to society. There will be a time later where I make a more in-depth video on this, but we really need to move along.
This is one of the primary reasons for this political culture of white nationalism. This is the primary reason.
And he's not wrong, but I'm not right-wing. I'm a centrist. But even I can see the problem in this, because it doesn't take rocket science to figure this shit out. You know, like I mentioned earlier, there aren't enough people within minority groups that care about this where this wouldn't be an issue. And even if that wasn't the case, that can still be perceived as disrespectful, in my opinion. And to compound this even further, there wouldn't be enough people within minority groups to come up with new Western ideals, because white people are the ones who created those ideals and ideas and ways of living and such. So it would be impossible for a different group of people to even come up with said ideas without white people. And Western ideas are better than most other ideas in the world. That's why Western countries are some of the more successful countries. They're not perfect, but that's why you fix things that aren't perfect. Instead of destroying them with a battering ram, you know, a bulldozer, a grenade, you know, anything. You don't destroy things just because they're broken. You try to repair it. I'm so sick of this crap.
That black people were stunned that somebody with ideas like Donald Trump could be elected to be the president of the United States of America, but white people, they get it.
Donald Trump is an opportunist. Whether you agree with his politics or not, it doesn't change the fact that he often tries to appeal to people just so he can get approval, basically. That doesn't mean that everything he did was illegitimate. I'm not saying that. The man could have had, or probably still has, a passion for the... Well, it's no denying that Donald Trump is not a patriotist. It's no denying that Donald Trump is a patriotist. Oh my god, can I speak this afternoon? Oh my god, speaking about this stuff is exhausting. It's no secret that Donald Trump is a patriot. But, you know, he is a lot of talk. You know, he's not all talk. He doesn't talk out of his ass with everything. But some things he has been all talk on. You know, it'd be better to see him actually follow through with certain things. But sometimes when that happens, it's not his fault. It has to do with, you know, people that surround him, preventing him from making any kind of real change. You know. But this is why I say that these issues cannot be solved with politics. At least not directly. It's going to take, like I said, a civilization-wide, country-wide, society-wide shift to fix it. A shift in attitudes, a shift in culture, a shift in everything. You know, it's got to happen. Otherwise, these countries, this whole civilization is just not going to survive. And that's going to be not only detrimental to us, but to the world. We consider the contributions that Western society has brought to the world and to the human race as a whole.
Why? Because in order for them to maintain white supremacy, they have to stay alive.
Yes, a white supremacist who wants to maintain white supremacy will have white children to maintain that. There's just one little issue with that. It doesn't apply to all white people. Not every fucking white person is a goddamn white supremacist. Or supports that ideology. Just because you care about the base demographic of the country does not mean you're a white supremacist. It only seems that way because white people developed so many, you know, Western things. They're the ones who developed the Western civilization and culture. And it's evolved over time. From, you know, obviously, generations, you know, do things differently. But, you know, but that doesn't mean you're a white supremacist for believing that. That's what we really need to stop doing. We need to stop labeling people so much. Enough with these petty fucking school play games. I'm tired of this shit. These are real issues that need to be solved, and without these little fucking mind games and schoolyard bullying bullshit they want to do to people when they speak out against this shit. It's making it difficult for normal, everyday people to speak out about this stuff. And it's frustrating because nobody seems to be doing anything about that. That's why we need more people who aren't on the right to speak about these issues. Because this is something that's apolitical. You know, this affects everything.
And in order for them to stay alive and knowing that they're not reproducing fast enough to remain in power, they have to do everything within their power, even if it includes a genocidal plan to wipe out all non-white people.
Okay, and this is where we get the Alex Jones levels of just batshit insanity. So this guy thinks that a mass genocide is going to occur to wipe out all black and brown people. First of all, that's not even viable or sane. That's not how you're going to fix things. Anybody with a sane mind, anybody within their right mind knows that. It doesn't take a genocide to do this shit. That's why I advocate for a cultural shift and where people can respect, you know, the position that white people have instead of acting like nobody would ever care. Okay, let me rephrase that. It'd be better and easier to change and more, you know, sane to change attitudes versus committing a mass genocide. Like, where's he even getting in this shit from? This stuff is bad shit insane. The average everyday person is not going to advocate for a goddamn genocide. Look at his fucking face right now. That's like an awful freeze frame I just paused that on. But anyway, let's continue the video.
See, you have to understand what the term white supremacy means and what it represents. White supremacy represents the preservation of the white race and its ideas over all non-white people on the earth.
Okay.
Of the white race and it represents the preservation of the white race and its ideas over all non-white people on the earth.
What? Okay. What the fuck? Okay, let's analyze this bit by bit here. First of all, that's not true at all. Only somebody with right-wing beliefs would believe that. But anybody with a sane brain will know, and we're not talking just people on the right. I'm not insulting anybody on the right of political spectrum. I'm not talking about people like that. I'm talking about, like the far, like right, the far right. Like people who just lost their mind. Those kinds of people that would advocate for things like a genocide or anything of that nature. And he's saying it as if every white person supports white supremacy. It only seems that way because what group of people would just throw themselves out the fucking window voluntarily? Nobody does that. And white people are the only people on earth that would do something like that because of societal conditioning and whatnot. And that's crazy what he just said. The reason why it would be preferable to have white people dominate most of everything would be because of better ideas. And I'm not saying that everything that white people have ever come up with was a good idea. Certainly, because nobody's perfect. People make mistakes. That's okay. But in the grand scheme of things, it would be better to have that. In fact, let me repeat that yet again.
Represents. White supremacy represents the preservation of the white race and its ideas over all non-white.
Okay. Then you're basically talking about every single race of people on the planet. That applies to every single race on the planet. Every single race would want their people to be maintained to preserve them. That's not rocket science. Why is it only bad for white people to do that? This is the problem. And the white race and its ideas. Of course, the white race and ideas. And its ideas. Of course. You know why? Because there have been some of the best ideas. Some of the worst as well. I'm not saying that, like I mentioned earlier. But, like I said, in the grand scheme of things, white ideas, and Western culture has helped out not only white people, but the world as a whole. Okay? In the grand scheme of things. The positives outweigh the negatives, basically. And the West is not perfect, but that's why people are here to fix it. And, without white people, you can't maintain Western culture. Because no other race of people, they're not, like I've mentioned this a million times, I sound like a broken record, but there aren't enough people within minority groups that are going to care about Western civilization the way white people do. Even people who want to say they're, liberals and stuff like that, even they know this stuff. It's not rocket science.
People on the earth. It's common knowledge that the black gene is dominant and the white is recessive. This is not me poking fun at white people. I'm not being cynical. This is science. Your own white scientists bear witness to this. Some of us were angry that Serena Williams decided to procreate with a white male. Okay, We can be mad about it if we want, but at the end of the day, the baby that they produce is going to be black. It is what it is. So what you're seeing...
Okay, whoa. First of all, the level of the black gene that exists in a child is going to be different, very different, compared to if the mother of the child is black or the father of the child is black. If a black father impregnates a white woman, the child is going to, because the child rests in the mother's womb. I can't confirm this, but it's basically a pattern that I've seen that's hard to ignore. Normally, when the mother is white, the child will come out looking more white than black. But if the mother is black, the child will come out looking more black than white. So black, in fact, that you wouldn't even be able to recognize the child as mixed race had you not been told or seen the father. And I've noticed this within my own family and within other families that have mixed race children. So that's not really correct. I mean, the white gene is more recessive, but it doesn't mean that it's completely wiped out when somebody has a mixed race child. And more of it will exist in a child with a black father versus a white father, basically.
With the current atmosphere, political, economic, educational, social.
Also, before we even get to that part, if somebody was born mixed race with a black father and a white mother, as if those generations for years and years and years continue to breed with white people, eventually what's going to end up happening is the black gene that the father provided is going to be diluted by the white gene, which will then become the more dominant gene as time goes on, because that gene in the family line is going to get stronger as more and more children procreate with white people. That's also not rocket science. That's why some black people have heavier European ancestry than, the average black person. And some white people have a heavier African heritage than most white people. It has to do with that. Sometimes family lines change over time for whatever reason.
You're seeing the Caucasian race fighting for its life. And it is not we black people that have caused this decline in the reproduction of white people.
But it'd be inaccurate to say that black people have not played a part in that, especially when it comes to cultural attitudes. I can't tell you how many white people, especially white women, who are middle-aged and having a midlife crisis that just go around and date black dudes for no reason other than to stick it to some white man that they went out with or previous white men, and don't actually like these people, but just do it because that's how they get their sick kicks. And I have no respect for people that do that. I find that is kind of disrespectful, because all you're doing is procreating on purpose to stick it to some phantom white man. And it really pisses me off when I see people do that shit. Not because you legitimately like this person, not because you see this person as fit, but because they're simply black men. And that pisses me off. And that's why a lot of white men get pissed off when they see white women with black dudes, especially some of the nastiest, most vile black dudes I've ever seen. They always want to get with the lowest of the low. I've seen that a lot. And that's also why a lot of white men are frustrated, because they're like, well, why the hell are these white women these types of black men? It doesn't mean that every black man is that way. Most certainly not. It's really inaccurate to say that 40 million people, over 40 million people in the United States are all the same. But it has to do with cultural attitudes towards it. And other different things. There'll be a time, like I said, I'll make more in-depth videos on these topics, but I just wanted to point that out, just to put some more correct facts in this video.
It is the Creator himself.
Okay, now we get to the dumb shit even further. He wants to basically say that the Creator, in this case God, and for those of you that don't know, I'm agnostic, so, and I don't take too kindly to dogmatic versions of God, because honestly, you can't prove anything about that. But just because it was written in I know I'm going to offend some people when I say this, but just because it was written in a book doesn't mean everything that was written in said book was correct. That's how I feel about it. That applies to any religious text ever made. Since there's no way to really prove anything in it. You can see things that maybe correlate, but correlation doesn't equal causation at all. That's another big problem. People want to use religion like, oh, well, it says in the Bible this, or that, and we're seeing this, or that, but that doesn't mean that that's the cause of that, situation or whatever you may have you. But enough about that. Let's get to what I really wanted to talk about this segment. So, he's basically saying that, his God is somehow angry at white people for, things that white people have done, and is preventing white people from reproducing, which is a batshit insane thing to say. Like I mentioned earlier, I know certain white people who've had more than 4 siblings, and they're all white. Doesn't mean that white people can't reproduce at all. There's some kind of curse on white people that white people can't reproduce. That's ridiculous. But the thing is, this Mohammad asshole wants this to happen. And that's why he's using everything to back up his claims. And saying that this is what it says in the Bible, so that there's no possible way what he's saying could be incorrect. He wants this to happen. And that shows a true intention behind a lot of people who run this advice show network. Same thing with Philip Scott. And oh boy, we're going to enjoy ripping his ass a new one on this channel. Believe me. But, because he's the original owner of the Advice Show Network. But, yeah. We're going to go ahead and move along here.
So now, when we put it in this context, brothers and sisters, it places on us a great responsibility. You see, just as Joseph was a slave and became ruler in the land where he once was a slave, this is just a prophecy of black people's experience in America. That's why it's called a prophecy. It is history written in advance. That's not talking about an individual thousands of years ago. That's not talking about us. That's talking about a people.
No.
And wise. This is just a visual thousands of years ago. That's not talking about us. That's talking about a people.
No. People who were alive thousands of years ago were not fucking fortune tellers. How the hell would they know this would happen? And this revenge bullshit is gonna move society nowhere. That's what I say. That's all this guy knows is just destruction. Goes on and on and on and on and on about how evil white people are and all this other shit. But you're not making a great case for yourself either. Okay? You're literally advocating for a replacement of an entire group of people worldwide because you have some warped view of justice. Like, this is somehow needed because, of shit that happened hundreds of years ago. Okay? That's what the problem. When you're delusional and you believe a delusion for your whole life, you will look for anything to prove it, no matter how batshit insane it is. And that pretty much sums up every single person on this network, especially that other Phil guy. But like I said, we'll save that for another video, because oh my god, I go on for like 2 hours talking about Philip Scott. That guy is a massive idiot.
And wise white people, they know that you have a bright future. They know that it is your destiny to be future world rulers.
Yep. And you sound no different from the white supremacists that you claim to hate so much at that particular point in the video. You literally advocate for world domination of black people, but criticize white people because certain white people, in this case white supremacists, advocate for world domination of white people. It doesn't take all that. What I believe in is that people who rule said society or civilization should rule said society or civilization. It's not everybody. It's not a job of one group of people to rule the entire world. You know, people like Richard Spencer want to say. You know. But I think it's important for the people who created said societies and civilizations to rule said societies and civilizations. Otherwise, they're gone.
And so they have to do everything within their power to block us from that destiny. And unfortunately, we are in this headspace where we're helping them by the killing of one another.
I'm not even going to respond to that. I'm so done with this video, man.
But there's nothing that they can do, and there's nothing that even we can do to stop the rise of black people. Every enemy who is digging a grave for our children and our future to fall into, they'll end up falling into that grave themselves.
Whoa. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier when I say that people who created said civilizations and cultures should rule those civilizations and societies. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Subversive people like this guy are the reason why, you know, you have white supremacists, because it ends up creating an extreme problem, ends up creating extreme people. Well, that's not really the solution. It's not rocket science why people have those beliefs, you know. But also, it's not that white people want to stop black people from progressing. Like, there is nothing stopping you from doing anything at all. Nothing. But what you're not going to do is you're not just going to sit here and take over societies and civilizations just because you have some warped idea of justice. Like this is somehow destiny. No, the fuck it's not. It's not destiny. What the hell are you getting that shit from? That is not destiny. And that will just end up destroying everything created. Everything. Obviously, that's not in your roots, sir. And look at how angry he looks in this video. He obviously wants this shit to happen. He is just rooting for this shit to happen. He's probably sitting on his couch right now going, yes, 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 every time he sees the birth rate go down even further for white people. And I'm just like, this is why you have white supremacists. If people weren't doing shit like this wouldn't even be a problem. So, because people ended up being radicalized, you know, because they can't see any other way. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that that's why you have that problem. You know, that's why we need more people speaking up against people like this guy and this agenda, because this is going to spell this is going to be a big problem in the future. We don't stop it right now.
It was written. So the responsibility that we have is why we see that decline. We have to celebrate the birth of black babies. Because if we're not reproducing, then there will be nobody in the future that can execute these ideas that we need to be executed in order for us to build a black nation.
Okay, so now we've reached even further levels of hypocrisy. I'm starting to get really irritated. Okay, so this is exactly what I was saying earlier. Without a certain group of people, certain ideas cannot flourish or continue to exist because other people are just simply not going to care. Because it's not their ideas. You know this shit. You literally just admitted it. And you also just admitted that you want black people to basically take over the entire world. If that isn't... This is the same guy who sent a video... It was a video title, I'll put the link in the description, but it was a video that he made called The Coon exclamation mark. 9 signs you may be dealing with one, which is a really stupid video that I really need to go over as well. But he said in that video that no one teaches black supremacy. You, my man, are a damn idiot. Because you literally just contradicted yourself when you said that. That is literally something that a white supremacist would say, except that your ass is black. No difference, except skin color. You're a complete hypocrite. And dangerous. Just as I don't agree with white supremacy, I don't agree with black supremacy either. Especially not in the Western world. What the hell's wrong with this guy, man?
So when a woman comes and says to you, I'm pregnant. Well, oftentimes and most times, the circumstances aren't perfect. But that's not something that you frown your face upon. And that's not something that you go in your back pocket to try to find abortion money.
You know, that's actually something I can stand by because that applies to every race of people. You know, circumstances may not be perfect, but... You know, there'll be a time where I talk about my stance on abortion, but I'm generally of the belief that it should not be so readily available as it is, and it shouldn't be used so frequently. Abortion and birth control and stuff. There's nothing wrong with contraceptives, but abortion isn't a goddamn contraceptive.
To go and send her to a clinic. No. In order for a culture to maintain itself for more than 25 years, you have to be reproducing at least a 2.1 percentage point of child per family.
Okay, you understand that. Why is it okay for you to do that and advocate for that and advocate for black supremacy, but it's not okay for white people to advocate for white supremacy? And it's not like every black person, every white person agrees with this. There are tons of people who don't agree with these horrible ideas. And, you know, this is a very warped view of justice. This isn't even justice. You're committing the same crime. It's not justice when a person commits a crime on you and you turn around and commit that same crime to them. At that point, you're both guilty. You're not better than anybody else at that point. You're not better than the crook that you want to get in trouble. Since you did the exact same crime.
So, brothers and sisters, hopefully what we have given you is new insight into why they hate you so much.
Oh boy. This, like I mentioned earlier about the whole delusion thing, when you believe a delusion for your whole life, you'll look for anything to confirm that delusion, no matter if it makes any sense or not. He's basically saying that all white people hate black people because they don't want black people to rise up. What? First of all, unless you're a self-defeatist motherfucker, why the hell would you want people who did not build said civilization or society, or at least not in full? I'm not saying that black people played no part at all. Obviously, when you look through history, it has. But when you talk about the people who pioneered it, people who care about it the most, that's white people. How come that civilization is not allowed to prosper or improve itself and just needs to be destroyed just because of slavery and shit? Like, I'm really sick and tired of hearing these revenge plots. At that point, that's just evil right there.
Hopefully we've given you new inspiration.
Ha! You didn't give me inspiration. You gave me inspiration to speak out against this horse shit. That's what you gave me. I'm not gonna follow in your footsteps. At all. And nobody else should either. No black person and no white person within their right mind should allow this kind of shit to prosper. At all.
And a new viewpoint when it comes to black children. Don't you know that white women around the world, especially in Europe, they wish that they could reproduce at the rate of black women and Latino sisters? They wish that they could.
What the hell are you talking about? For centuries, people reproduced en masse and had way more children. I just read a post on Cora, however you say that, how you pronounce that, where this guy from Canada was talking about the immigration history of his parents. And he said that his grandma, who was of European descent, had 12 kids. 12. So this whole idea about European women not being able to reproduce as much as, black and brown people was complete bullshit. Like I said, it only seems that way. Only seems that way, but that's not the reason why.
Because you see, if in the future we're going to be the majority, and let's say black and brown come together and
no, I don't want that to happen. I don't see it happening because your ideas are horrible. Not every single one that you said, not every idea that you said is horrible, but most of it is. Same thing with Phil. I do not want this to happen.
You know what? Since we are the majority, and you all talking about using the power of your vote, you'll literally be able to pick and choose who will be the president, Congress, Senate. If you're the majority and you are awake and you are united, then you run the country. And so the America that
that ain't happening, motherfucker.
Is no more.
Well, hold on.
So Donald Trump, and so the America that was is no more.
You just said it. You're not even trying to hide it. You want to take over America. But let me tell you something. That's not going to happen without a fight. And in my lifetime, I will be fighting against this shit. I may be too young to really have any kind of power right now, but I guarantee you that this shit isn't going to happen. It's not. No. This cannot happen. The future of America, and many other countries depend on it. There's no way this can happen. There's no reason it needs to happen. Why does this need to happen, Mr. Mohammad guy? Why does it need to happen? Why? What's the point? To execute some warped idea of justice? Some fucked up idea of justice? That's what it is.
So Donald Trump is not as stupid as you think he is. Donald Trump is the quintessential white nationalist who sees his children's future being threatened by your child's and my child's destiny.
What destiny are you talking about? What are you even talking about here?
And his worst nightmare is for 30, 40 years from now, his children having to come to your children and ask for a job. That's his worst nightmare. So I end on this note.
I can't say that for sure about Trump, but I know a lot of other people do have that. That's their worst nightmare. And honestly, you can't blame them. If somebody has power, why the hell would they want to give up that power? And why do you think that people are just going to give that up for no reason, without a fight. You're dumb.
As I begin, if you were in an elevator outnumbered 11-1, just like it ain't no telling what you'll do to get off that elevator, don't underestimate what these people will do and are doing in order to get from underneath this 11-1 ratio. Watch the food that you eat.
Oh boy, he's gonna come up with those conspiracy theories about white people trying to sabotage black people by killing them off and shit, doing dumb shit like this. This isn't 1935 anymore. That's not really gonna do anything. But man, like I wasn't kidding when I said this guy is a black version of Alex Jones.
Be mindful of the water that you drink. Be mindful of the destructive, genocidal information that they're feeding you through television programs, through the internet and other mediums.
Okay, now you just twisted shit. That's exactly what they're doing to white people. They're not doing that to black people at all. Not even in a positive way. They're not encouraging black people to have babies. They're not encouraging black people to not have babies. Nothing is being brought against black people. It's all about perception. And because he's so delusional, that's all he sees.
Be careful of the medicine that your so-called doctor prescribes for you. There is death for you in everything.
Oh boy.
And there's death for you in everything that they prescribe for you because they see their own light going out. So again, we got work to do. Peace.
Oh, you got work to do. No, we've got work to do, motherfucker. When I say we, I mean the true Americans, the true Westerners. You know, people who have this country in their hearts and care about it. We're the ones who got work to do. Your ass is going to be defeated. You're not winning this battle. You know, when you poke the bear long enough, the bear will claw your ass back. And that's what's going to happen. So yeah, keep telling yourself that, Mr. Mohammad guy. Because your warped idea of justice will not prevail. And that's all I have to do for this video. So thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be making more videos on these people. And yep. Please leave a comment. Maybe subscribe. And I'll be back.